The events of October 7th, 2023 have shaken all of us to our core. Hamas, a wicked, bloodthirsty, anti-Semitic terrorist regime, stormed across the border and targeted the least among us. Pregnant mothers, babies, the elderly. It's infuriating for anybody who cares about the value of human life. And then we see protests pop up. Pro-Hamas protests, if you can believe it or not. This is sickening to many of us who place a value on life, regardless of age or ethnicity. So who is Hamas? And if you're a Hamas supporter, you need to be knowing who it is you're supporting. Let's read from Hamas's charter and use their own words to describe who they are. First, from their introduction, it says this: the Islamic resistance movement joins its hands with all of the jihad fighters for the purpose of liberating Palestine. Our struggle against the Jews is extremely wide-ranging and grave until the enemies are defeated and Allah's victory prevails. So that's the introduction. We learn right away that Hamas is a servant of Allah. Number two, we learn that it's against the Jews whom they're fighting, and they're not going to stop until all of the region of Palestine is under their control. Let's keep going. The Islamic resistance movement strives to raise the banner of Allah over every inch of Palestine. That's from Article 6. Now, just a quick word about the origin of the word Palestine. Are you aware that in 137 AD, a gentleman named Emperor Hadrian ruled over the territory? Hadrian was anti-Semitic. He hated the Jewish people. And in an effort to sever any kind of Jewish connection to the land of Israel, he renamed the entire region Palestine, naming it after Israel's ancient enemy, the Philistines. He even tried to rename Jerusalem to Aelia Capitolina. One of those stuck, the Palestine. Aelia Capitolina, thankfully, did not. But that's the origin of how the region became known as Palestine. It is Hamas's goal to raise the banner of Allah over every inch of Palestine. I wonder if the surrounding Arab nations realize that Hamas also wants to take over their nations, which at one time, like the nation of Jordan, was included in the region of Palestine. Let's keep going. Article 8, which is the slogan of Hamas, says this: Allah is its goal, the Prophet its model, the Quran its constitution. Jihad is the path, and death for the case of Allah is most sublime belief. By the way, that's also the slogan for the Muslim Brotherhood, another terrorist organization. Article number 12. Nothing is loftier or deeper in nationalism than waging jihad against the enemy. And of course, by the enemy, they mean Israel. Confronting him when he sets foot on the land of the Muslims. And this becomes an individual duty binding on every Muslim man and woman. In other words, it's not just their particular prerogative. Hamas believes that every Muslim man and woman should join them in this cult of death. Let's keep reading. Article 28 says the Arab states surrounding Israel are required to open their borders to the jihadi fighters. The other Arab and Islamic states are required, at the very least, to facilitate the movement of the jihad fighters from and to them. Israel, by virtue of its being Jewish and of having a Jewish population, defies Islam and the Muslims. There we have it. Simply by being born, by being who they are as the Jewish people, they're in defiance of Hamas's version of Islam. So how can the Jewish people ever correct that problem? According to Hamas, it's a problem. They can't. How do you negotiate with someone who views your very being as a problem? But that's not all. Article 11 states this: the land of Palestine has been an Islamic waqf. Now, what does this mean? This means that their definition of the land of Palestine is never to be given over to anybody who's not a Muslim. You see, the Muslims once had total control over the region. However, others came and took it back. And there's been many different rulers over the region throughout the centuries. But Hamas believes that once Muslim control was exerted over the region, it's never ever to be given back to anybody else. Again, how could you ever negotiate from that type of a position? We continue with Article 13. It says this: there's no solution to the Palestinian problem except by jihad. Peace initiatives, the so-called peaceful solutions, international conferences, all these to resolve the Palestinian problem are contrary to the beliefs of the Islamic resistance movement. In other words, for those people who are just calling for Israel to sit down at the table and talk to Hamas, I don't think they quite understand who Hamas really is. The Islamic resistance movement does not believe that these conferences are capable of responding to demands or restoring the rights or doing justice to the oppressed. There's no solution except by jihad. The initiatives, proposals, and international conferences are but a waste of time and an exercise in futility. This is who Hamas is. Ultimately, this is a spiritual problem, and I believe that the same spiritual forces that were at work in 1930s and early 40s Germany are at work in the world today. And they are certainly manifesting themselves in all agents who are willing to express a hatred for God's treasured possession, the Jewish people. Would you stand with us in praying for the Jewish people during these difficult days? And I hope that now you are better informed about who Hamas is, what they believe, and their clearly stated goals in their charter. If you found this information helpful, I'd encourage you to take the link and repost it, share it with others so that they don't get caught up in some kind of a pro-Hamas position, which is essentially akin to saying you're pro-Nazi. Thanks so much for joining us. Hit that like and subscribe on your way out. Until next time, shalom.